morning, everyone. Welcome to MOE's Facebook Live session, Preparing Our Children for Secondary School. I'm Sharon, the Divisional Director for Engagement and Research Division, and I'm very happy to be your moderator this morning. With me today are our panelists. Please welcome Mr. Chan Chun Sing, Minister for Education, also a parent of three, and Ms. Yeo Sha En, founder of Happiness Scientist and parent of two. Welcome, Minister Chan and Sha En. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
This morning, we have many parents tuned in with us, and I believe that most of you are parents of primary 5 or primary 6 children. And we are all here to learn and share from one another how to support our children as they transit to secondary school. And we're also very happy to have Minister and Sha En to share with us their experiences as parents and also as parents with children who have recently gone through the PSLE. So, parents and audience, many of you have submitted your questions before today's session, and we will do our best to respond to as many as we can. We may not be able to respond to all your questions individually, but we have noted your top areas of interest and concerns. And with that, we have designed today's conversation along these themes. We will be sharing about PSLE matters, how to choose suitable secondary schools, how to adapt to secondary schools, and also general sharing experiences as parents of teens. And if you have any more questions for our panelists, please feel free to put them into the chat box. To ensure an enjoyable experience for all of us, I'd like to invite all of us to observe some chat rules. Let's stay on topic. We will take questions that are directly related to our discussion. And let's also be respectful. We will ask and comment respectfully, keeping in mind others' perspective and views. So I'm sure that many of us are curious to learn more about our panelists this morning and their experiences. So let me break the ice by asking Minister Chan and Sha En. Min and Sha En, can you share with us briefly what was it like being a recent PSLE parent? Maybe Sha En can share first.
I think at some point you felt a little bit unsure, especially since she was going through it during a lot of disruptions in her learning. So I guess at some point you were thinking, is she going to be all right? Would she be able to cope with all the disruptions in her learning? Is she stressed? Am I stressed? I think there are a lot of thoughts going on through the process, and I think for me it's just remaining calm and focusing on what is it she needs and then trying to attend to those needs. So yeah, I mean at the end, of course, when it's all done, you feel yahoo, it's done.
Thanks, Sha En. We look forward to hearing more about your experiences. Minister?
Well, my motto is that just be as normal as you can be. Try not to do anything special, try not to do anything extra, because I think unconsciously that might just pass on the anxiety to our children.
Very wise words indeed. Thanks, Minister. And we also look forward to hearing more from you. So, parents, you've heard from our panelists. Now we would like to get to know you better. I'd like to invite you to take an online poll to share with us how are you feeling right now as your child prepares for the PSLE. On the poll, you can share with us whether you are excited, doing all right, or maybe a little stressed. And don't worry, parents, there are no right or wrong answers. This is not a test question. Today is a safe space for everyone to share our views, our thoughts, and to share our experiences as well. And in the meantime, we would like to play a video for you about PSLE scoring and Set 1 posting systems. Some of you have asked to learn more about this area, and we hope that this video that we're going to share with you will give you some of the information that you may need. It's close to 7 minutes long, this video, so do sit back, relax, or grab a cup of coffee and tea as you start this beautiful morning. Yeah, so enjoy, and we'll see you back in a few minutes.
The PSLE is a useful checkpoint at the end of primary school to gauge a student's understanding of key concepts and academic strengths, which can guide their future choices to one that best suits their learning needs. The PSLE score also serves as a fair and transparent way to determine secondary school posting. The PSLE changes intend to reduce excessive competition and overemphasis on academic results. This will allow students to focus on their own learning and develop their strengths and abilities rather than comparing themselves to their peers. For every subject, students will be assigned an achievement level which spans a range of marks. Students who score in the same range of marks in a subject will fall in the same achievement level. Whether your child scores 92 or 100, he will still be awarded the highest achievement level. There are 8 achievement levels, or AL, with AL1 being the best. The student's AL reflects their own level of achievement. This means that once the student meets the learning objectives of the curriculum, they will receive the AL, regardless of how their peers have performed. If your child scores 80, your child will be awarded AL3 even if their peers scored higher than they did. The achievement levels of the 4 subjects are added to form the PSLE score, which ranges from 4 to 32. Foundation subjects are graded from ALA to ALC with a corresponding raw mark range as shown. ALA to ALC for foundation level subjects are mapped to AL6 to AL8 or standard level subjects respectively to derive a student's overall PSLE score. The PSLE score will determine which secondary school course your child is placed in and will guide them in shortlisting their secondary schools. Every child has strengths and interests. It is about identifying a course and/or school that is best suited for them. Subject-based banding secondary provides students in the normal academic or NA and normal technical or NT courses greater flexibility to take various subjects at a more demanding level based on their subject-specific strengths. With subject-based banding, students in NA or NT can take any subject at the express level if they score AL5 or better in a standard level subject at the PSLE. This is so that students develop in areas they are strong in. MOE is expanding subject-based banding to full subject-based banding or full SBB, in short, to nurture the joy of learning and develop multiple pathways. Students will be in mixed form classes where they can interact with peers of different strengths and interests. Students will continue to be posted to a secondary school based on academic merit, that is the PSLE score, and their school choices. A student's choice order of school will matter more in secondary school posting, which recognizes the importance that students and parents give to their choice of schools. If 2 students have the same PSLE score, the student who puts school A higher in his choice order, for example, the first choice, will get priority in entering the school as compared to the other student who lists school A lower in his choice order, for example, the third choice. Tiebreakers will be applied where 2 or more students with exactly the same PSLE score are vying for the last remaining place or places in a school in the following order. First, citizenship. Second, choice order of school. Third, computerized balloting. How do the tiebreakers work? There is only one place left in school A, and Jane and Mary have both listed school A as their first choice. As Jane has a better PSLE score than Mary, she will get the last place in school A and be posted to it. As the last place in school A has been taken up by Jane, Mary will now be considered for her second choice of school, school B. Brian has the same PSLE score as Mary and has listed school B as his first choice. School B also only has one place left, and so tiebreakers will be applied to determine who will be successfully posted there. Since both Mary and Brian are Singapore citizens, we'll apply the next tiebreaker, choice order of schools. Because Brian ranked school B higher than Mary, he will be posted to school B. Since Brian has taken the last place in school B, Mary will be considered for her next choice, school C. When submitting school choices, you and your child should use all 6 options with a range of cut-off points. Consider at least 2 to 3 schools where your child's PSLE score is better than the school's cut-off point. The PSLE score ranges serve only as a guide for you and your child, as they may vary from year to year since they depend on each cohort's performance and school choice patterns. Look beyond the cutoff points to the unique programs offered by the different secondary schools. Ranking your child's preferred school higher in the school choice order will increase the chances of your child being posted there if tiebreakers are required. The recent shifts in the education system are another step to reduce overemphasis of results and broaden the definitions of success for our students. Over the years, we have introduced direct school admission, stopped naming the top scorers, stopped reviewing the highest and lowest scores, and released past PSLE papers to make exam standards and formats clearer. Our schools have also been introducing varied programs for our students to be creative and explore their interests. They also offer opportunities for students to build their resilience, tenacity, and team spirit. In primary school, students develop strong foundation skills but also have time to discover their strengths and interests. They are in the process of finding out who they are. They choose a secondary school that suits their interests and abilities and build on their existing skills and talents. Students are always encouraged to look beyond just academic results and enjoy many experiences at school that help develop their knowledge, skills, values, and character. Beyond school, students will develop an array of abilities that go beyond just textbooks and exams. Our students' success depends on all of us. They need our active support from parents, teachers, and the community to enable them to reach their potential. Let us work together so that our children can do their best, each in their own way.
Welcome back. And parents, let's take a look at our poll results right now. We can see that almost 10% of you are excited as your child is leading up to the PSLE. And almost 50% of you are feeling kind of stressed at the moment. Okay, that's probably quite natural. And to begin with, we hope that the video that we just shared you about the PSLE system, as well as the Sec 1 posting system, was useful for you to just understand a little bit better. In the chat box, we will also include the link to the MOE microsite where you can find out a lot more information about all this. Maybe I'll invite Minister and Sha'an to respond to the poll. As recent PSLE parents, can you relate to this and how our parents are feeling?
I can relate. I mean, there are certain points, I guess, that you feel particularly stressed, especially if you notice that your child is stressed. But most of the time, I resonate with the 35% where you're pretty chill, it's doing all right, and you just kind of know that this is part and parcel of the process that she has to go through.
Well, I suppose when I saw this result, I'm not surprised. But I thought it's useful for us to perhaps wonder why we are stressed, if we are stressed. I suppose as a parent who have gone through PSLE, there are two possible reasons why we might feel stressed. One is because we think that our child is not going to do well on an absolute scale. It means they're really not going to do well. That could be one reason. The other reason, which I think is a bit more common, but perhaps not so usual for people to verbalize, is that they think that their child might not do well relatively. So there's one that worry about the child not doing well absolutely because they might really not pass and so forth. Then the other group might be thinking that the child might not do well relatively because they're comparing the child with somebody else, and they might be thinking that, oh, what if he or she doesn't get the score that he or she wants? Will she be able to get into this school that they want, or this school that other people want? So I think these are the two reasons of stress, which then I think is a useful point for us to remind ourselves really what's the purpose of the PSLE and what is, if you like, our definition of success as a parent and as a child. So for me, I think if we go in with the perspective that really, be it PSLE or any other assessment or any test, is really to help our children to understand where they stand and how best to put them in an environment that supports their next level of learning. Then we get rid of this stressor called that comparison, that relativity, whether my child do well vis-a-vis other people. Then I think we can better support our children in their next level.
Thanks very much, Min, for reminding us about that. I think as we progress in our education system, we do want our children to feel happy and confident as they are learning, and we also want them to, while achieving, not to always to have to feel that they need to compare themselves with others. And I think that's one of the key purpose also for the change in the PSLE scoring system, where we have changed from the aggregate score to the achievement levels, and now our children have 8 achievement levels to aspire towards, and it's really about how they have progressed themselves and not feel like they have to chase the last mark or keep comparing themselves. So we really do hope that this system is working out better for our children. Sha'an, what about yourself?
I feel like the word comparison is something that's it's always on top of your mind, and I think it's useful to distinguish between healthy comparison and unhealthy comparison. So like if you're comparing to someone else or comparing to the national average and standard, then the pressure is going to be there because it always feels like you're not up to mark. But if you're comparing with the child as they were progressing previously, then you're actually saying that, hey, this is where you used to be. Let's see where you're moving to, where you're going, where you've come from. And in that way, it's more empowering because you're actually seeing it as a bigger journey rather than just PSLE being that final thing. And then that's where all the pressure pot feeling comes from. So yeah, comparison can be good if you are not using it as a benchmark for your child.
So to add to what Sharon said, I mean, I always remember that I always try to encourage my children to say that it's more important to surpass yourself than to surpass someone else in an exam. Because that attitude of trying to surpass oneself daily throughout life is, I think, an important attitude that we want our children to have. That every day they are trying to seek to do better vis-a-vis their previous self. So they are constantly trying to improve with or without other people around them as that person to be compared with. I thought that is important, and I personally believe that that's very important, helping our child to remember that. But if we set our child or children on a different trajectory and perhaps a not so appropriate trajectory of constantly comparing themselves with somebody else, then they might actually be quite miserable for the rest of their life because the Chinese say 人比人比死人. So wherever you keep comparing, right, there will always be somebody else who might be better than you somewhere in life. And I think we also need to understand the character of our children. Some children are what I call the type A personality. If they are at the bottom of the class, they will work very hard and prove themselves and strive. So they might be quite comfortable in an environment whereby they are compared once in a while with others. But there are also many children who are just comfortable and trying to find their own footing in their own ways. And this comparison, or this constant or incessant comparison with other people, can actually be a very demotivating way to help them learn, or what the Chinese call the 激将法. You're just trying to tell them the negative thing in order to force them to improve. But not everybody take on to this kind of method. So as parents, I think, as educators, I think it's important for us to understand the character of our children, and then we apply our encouragement accordingly.
Thanks very much, Min. So for you, Sha'an, you did mention that as you worked with your daughter through PSLE, you also helped her to understand other things, right? And like to broaden the definitions of success, like what Minister also shared about. So what was that process like as you were guiding her through PSLE?
Yeah, I've always focused on enjoying the learning. To me, it's like if you enjoy what you're learning, then motivation comes from within. But if you are always feeling pressure and say you must do this, but you don't understand the rationale why you have to do it, then it feels almost like a chore. Yeah, and I felt like if I just reminded her, hey, whenever you're learning this particular concept, for example, how can we see it in ordinary life? Right? So if let's say you're learning about condensation, and then you take out a cold drink and it's there, and then you just kind of have a conversation about it, then learning is very natural, as opposed to, I need to memorize that particular sentence to respond to the exam question. And then in that sense, your child gets the sense that it's not just about answering the question correctly, but how am I going to use this learning in my day-to-day life and understand how to make sense of the world around me. Yeah, so that's one of the strategies that I use. And I find that even for me as a parent, it opened up a lot more conversational points because I don't really know how to answer the question myself, right? But if you get deeper understanding of the concept, then answering the questions become also a bit easier.
That's very useful to know. I guess it's about helping our children understand the purpose, the wider purpose of what
Yes.
they are learning. And we had several parents who asked us this question when they submitted their 3 questions via the parent kit survey. They generally it's about motivation of children. Our parents are asking us, how can we motivate our children to be more interested in their studies? How do we get them started? How do we get started with them and follow through? And I think Sha'an has touched on some of this already. Firstly, is to help our children see the meaning and the purpose in what they're learning and helping them relate to relevant and authentic situations in their lives. Just wondering, how do you help your child follow through then on this?
Follow through. I think I would like to see it rather than like say it once and expect them to know everything. But it's kind of like a daily reminder or little habits and routines that you can put in place. And once you have those little habits and routines, then it's easier for them to think of it like, oh, I just need to do that one thing today. And even like revision for study as well. Instead of saying, oh, you have to do this big chunk of 3 hours in order for you to do well, maybe it's like 15 minutes a day of this particular area. And then once you do that, they kind of get into the flow. It's much more accessible as well. And that helps with follow through. Yeah.
So it's important for us to give our children a sense that they are growing and picking up new skills every day. I mean, I see a question by Hui Min that asks us, should we go for tuition? But there are 2 ways to think about tuition. One way is that I go there because I'm learning something new, maybe something that I've never learned in school, or maybe something that I've not mastered in school. So I'm going there, and after that session, I feel that I have learned something, I've grown. That is not negative. But if the child feels that you are making me go tuition because you just want me to polish the grades, what we call polishing the grades. So I'm just being drilled to fulfill a certain task, but actually, I'd rather prefer to spend my time doing something and learning something new, learning a new skill or new dimension of skill. Then it will become quite disempowering for the children. So I think as parents, we need to be very careful that we need to give our children a sense that they are growing every day. That it is not just about meeting a certain benchmark or exam for a certain limited time, but this sense that every day I wake up, I feel like I want to go to school because I learned something in school. That is that joy of learning. I euphemistically call it the sparkle in the eye. So whenever I visit schools and I stand outside the schools, I always look at the kids walking into the schools and I want to see behind the mask, do they have the sparkle in the eyes? If the kids go into the school and then they don't have the sparkle in the eyes, we know that something is not going to be right. We know that they are not going to enjoy the learning that day because they are not looking forward to it. But I always see a lot of kids having the sparkle in their eyes when they do little projects. They may be totally unrelated to their academic work, but because they are discovering, they are putting things together, they feel a sense of accomplishment, of achieving something, doing something rather than just polishing the grades. I think we need to, as parents, we need to remember that. And it's nothing to do with just PSLE or not PSLE. It is something that I think Sharon will agree that it must start very young, that every day from preschool, when they go to school, we want them to have a sparkle in the eye because they look forward to learning something new and they feel a sense of accomplishment. And then I think it will snowball.
I think that's great. I mean, as an educator and a former principal myself, I love this term, sparkle in the eye, right? That's what we look out for in all our children, right? When they come to school bright-eyed and they're so excited to learn. And I think that's really our aspiration and our wish for all our children. So Sha'an, can you share with us uh, how did your daughter have that sparkle in the eye all through this journey? You know, or were there times when maybe it was a little bit more challenging for her or even for yourself? And how did you, as a parent and a coach, guide her through it?
I mean, of course, there are times when she feels like things are a bit boring or like a little bit difficult and particular topics. I think during those very challenging times, I always encourage her to think of other ways in which she could make the learning more interesting for herself. For example, if she has to do a repetitive task and then she doesn't enjoy it, maybe play some music in the background or take frequent breaks or maybe have a little snack next to her. Yeah, I think that it's inevitable that when it comes to learning, there will be some points where it's repetition, because repetition does embed and scaffold the learning. And if that's difficult, then yeah, maybe how can we create the conditions within the home environment to make it more palatable and more enjoyable? Yeah, and then I guess for myself, yeah, it's more like observing and seeing what she needs, and then being able to also not just always hover around her in a helicopter, but if she needs the space, why not give her the space? If you notice that they, they're feeling a bit stressed or they're pacing up and down, you see that the face doesn't have that sparkle lines, they have a lot of frown lines, then maybe it's about, just holding back and not asking too many questions. Because especially at this stage of adolescence, sometimes there's a lot going on in their mind besides the studying, and they may have a lot of emotions. And sometimes when we ask too many questions, they might feel, hey, you are intruding into my space. They may not say it directly to you, but just one look of the eye. I don't know if Minister has experienced that. You already know, like, okay, now it's time for me to just hold back a bit. Yeah.
I think whether is it before PSLE or in secondary schools, I think our children nowadays will come across many things that they might not know because they're given projects to do and maybe new things to discover. And sometimes, very often, even my children, they'll come back and say that, oh, I have to do this project. Do you know how to get this thing done? Then I will tell them that, oh, I've never even done this project before. But I always tell them that, this is an opportunity to discover something new. This is an opportunity for us to pick up some new skills. So I remember just a very live example of my son came back and said, oh, the school needed them to do this little 3-4 minute video clip. And he's like, oh, but I've never done this before and my friends are not sure. But then I encouraged him and his friends to say that, well, why don't we go and find out how to do a little video, and you'll be pleasantly surprised that within 1 or 2 weeks, they figure out just by searching the internet where are the software that are available for them to do this video editing. Then they came up with ideas. So at the end of the day, what was important to me was not the quality of the video per se, but the fact that through this journey, they have learned to manage their time, they have learned to manage how to work together as a team, and they have learned to learn. Very importantly, they have learned to learn new things, because in life there will be many opportunities even beyond the school years whereby they need to learn new things, and they need to have this confidence to say that when confronted with a new challenge, I'm able to use the tools that I have to go and pick up new skills. So it frees up also as a parent from thinking that we must know everything and pass on what we know to them. In fact, we would have learned things that our parents' generation have not learned. Our children's generation will certainly learn things that we have not learned, and that's how we keep improving. But it is that confidence to say that I can learn something on my own that is most important, rather than whether I produce a certain product to specification or not in the immediate term.
Thanks very much, Minister. Indeed, I think it's really about that drive and that strive to keep our children excited about learning. And I think that gives it the sparkle in the eye. And Sharon also shared about how it's important to build a supportive and conducive home environment to support the needs of our children as they're gearing up in their learning. One very real topic that many parents have raised with us is about expectations. Right? I think at every point in our life, when we reach a certain milestone, whether you are a child or a parent, when we're reaching up to the PSLE or going to secondary school, our expectations of ourselves or of our children may change. I'm just wondering if you would want to share with us, how did you manage that? Was this also a very real issue for both of you?
I think expectations is part and parcel of life, and as a parent, maybe you had an expectation that they need to perform in a certain way or look a certain way. But I think in the journey with my two daughters, I've learned to realize that each child, number one, is very unique and very different. And as a result, what you expect for number one may be different from number two. The other thing is also, when you have expectations that are too rigid, then quite likely and it doesn't turn out the way you want, then the feeling that you always get is disappointment and frustration. And that disappointment and frustration can sometimes, whether you think you're controlling it or not, get passed on to your children. Yeah, and so I think it's about being mindful of those expectations, being able to moderate them as well when you notice that your child is different from what you think he or she was. And I think, one of the real things that was happening for me is in primary 5 and primary 6, she slowly started to change, right? From being a very bubbly, love to hang out with me type, it's more like, oh, mommy, I'm just happy to just chill by myself, reading a book. And I was not prepared for it in the beginning, and so it was a struggle, like, oh, why doesn't she want to spend time with me? Is it because she doesn't care about me anymore? You have these real thoughts in your mind. But I guess it's expectations sometimes playing a trick on you, and it's about also accepting that this person is changing. She's becoming her own individual, and actually that's something to celebrate. Yeah, so now when she says, Mom, I just want to chill by herself, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm happy she knows and she's contented with who she is. Yeah, and I think that our role is less to force them to become what we think they should be, but give them the support and guidance and allow them to be the person they want to be.
I like to build on what Sharon said, and the key is that every child is different. Even between siblings, amongst siblings, they are different, they are unique. And it's very important for us to convey this to our children that we really appreciate their gifts in their own respective way, rather than have them feel that you, my parents, are trying to pigeonhole me into certain things or certain categories. And you don't you're not trying to appreciate my strength or weaknesses. You're not trying to understand my interests, but you just have these expectations. And I always remind myself that as parents, we must never try to project our unfulfilled aspirations onto our children because they are gifted in their different ways. I mean, personally, for me, my kid grow up in an environment whereby they know that their parents are perhaps probably academically quite successful, but I want them to know that you have your own gifts in your own way, and we will support you regardless to do justice to your blessings, not so much as to fulfill my expectations, but to fulfill your own expectations based on your own blessings. So that I think gives them the confidence. Otherwise, they will come back for my kids already with a lot of pressure from the rest of society. I mean, the joke for all ministers' children are this, right? If they do well, then everybody look at them like, oh, of course, you are the minister child, so you are expected to do well. And if you don't do well, it's like, how can you not do well? You are the minister's child. But even a minister's child is a child with their own unique gifts, and it is my job as a parent, not so much as a minister, but my job as a parent to best understand their gifts and see how we can best support them. So I thought those are important points that Sharon raised.
Thanks. Thank you very much for reminding us, Min and Sharon, about how special each of our child is and how everyone has their own lives to lead and how we're really here to support and encourage them. We hope it's been useful for parents. And, so we're now going to look at some of the live questions, and we do note that several parents online are sharing your feedback about the achievement level scoring bands and how it should be revisited as it's causing stress to chase after the last mark. And I guess there's also a parent, Juliana, who's also asking that wouldn't it make more sense for the PSLE to be removed? One of our parents, Hongbo, is asking that sometimes the perception of higher cutoff points could mean a higher school, a better school, and a higher likelihood of success. Is this necessarily accurate? And how is our education system addressing this? And can we actually further broaden the definitions of success? So from the video, parents, I think we would have learned that the PSLE does have its usefulness. It is but one checkpoint for us to understand how our child is faring so that we can know how to support a child as it progresses to the secondary school landscape. And it is really about understanding where our child's strength lies so that the adequate support can be provided. But we definitely do know that the PSLE is not the end all, and it's not the entire thing that our child is made up of. And I think this leads us nicely into how we want to broaden the definitions of success for our children. Earlier, Sharon shared about how she encourages her daughter to pursue things that are maybe unique to her. And Minister has reminded us also about how every child is different and how one sibling could be quite different from the other. And I guess that's where our children get a sense of confidence and success differently. Just wondering if Sharon or Minister would like to expand on these and how we help our children to gain confidence in the journey of success. And also maybe perhaps if you have any views about the PSLE that our parents are actually giving feedback on. So,
Well, I'd like to perhaps share a couple of stories for us to think about so that we do not uh, adopt too narrow a perspective. Like what Sharon was mentioning, actually the PSLE system is really to help ourselves understand our children better, to help them understand themselves better, so that when they transit to secondary school, they can be in a more appropriate environment to support their learning for the next level. So I have discussed with some of my colleagues and friends and said, let's do a thought experiment. Supposing our child, on average in school, score, say, a C, a AL, a C, say, okay? And we know that his progress has been like that throughout. And suddenly, his PSLE, he scored an A, right? So instead of scoring 4 Cs, he scored 4 As, right? Or the highest achievement level as we call it now. Are we happy as a parent? Yes, we are happy as a parent because he has surpassed what his expectations were. Then we ask ourselves this, and what secondary school do we choose for him or her? Do we choose the one that is the one with the rest of the students all A's, or do we choose something else? Because we need to know our children, whether is that a once-off, is he or she comfortable in that intense environment, or is he or she better off in an environment that he or she is comfortable learning with peers of around his or her abilities. And then it allows our teachers to focus their training, because it's really hard to teach a class where the abilities are very diverse and all the teachers will know. So if we look at the PSLE system as really something to help ourselves to understand our children, put them in an environment that's best suited for them to enable their learning for the next step, rather than comparing with other people, then I think we have a slightly different perspective of how the PSLE system should work. And perhaps a real story, I remember my daughter coming back one day after she went to JC. She said that, when she looks back, during her PSLE, some of her friends were perhaps scoring 20 more points than her on the previous aggregate score. So it's like, wow, such a big gap. But by the time they reach JC, they are all back in the same class, because people all develop at different pace. So some people are late bloomers, some people develop faster. And then now when they go on beyond the JC, they all pursue their different interests, and hardly any one of them will ask people, what's your PSLE score? And certainly I doubt very few employers will, in a job interview, ask you, what's your PSLE score, right?
That's right.
So it is just a milestone, and that's why I began the session by saying that it doesn't start and end at PSLE. I've always shared with my children that life is a series of tests and challenges, and each and every one of them is but one milestone that you cross. No one single test will define your entire life, and no one single matrix will define your entire life. PSLE just measure your academic success in a certain dimension, but there are many more dimensions to our children's ability beyond just that 4 subjects. That's why when our children choose the schools, we want them to be comfortable with their choice over and beyond the subjects grades that they get. I don't remember my children saying that I choose this school because this is the cutoff point and I want to squeeze into this school. Generally, when we discuss with them as to which school they want to go, they will tell you that, oh, my friends are going there. So I like to have I like to be with my friends. That's quite natural for young people. Uh, then they might also say that, oh, I actually quite like this CCA, or I like to try out this CCA, and this particular school has this particular CCA that I like to try. So I say, good. And for me, just being the logical logistician, I will tell them that, okay, if you want to choose this school, do you know how to get to the school? Do you know, have you budgeted your time? And so long as you understand what you are going in for, fine, you choose the school that you are most comfortable with. And I think hardly we impose this thing about the score, because the score is just one dimension of how they should choose a school. And when they go to secondary school, I think they will mix with people from different backgrounds, different abilities, and it is also part of life to appreciate that they don't just want to mix with people in a very narrow spectrum of that diverse background that they can experience. So I thought maybe some of these things will help us to put in perspective and perhaps feel less stressed about how to choose a school and what does it mean, what does the score mean to choosing a school. That score is just one dimension of it.
Thanks very much, Minister. Yeah, and I think Minister has segued us very nicely into a next batch of questions that many parents are asking about. How do we support our children to select suitable secondary schools? And Minister has already shared, well, some of the things to look out for, maybe their interests, their CCAs, etc. We'd like to understand you better, parents online. So at this point, we'd like to invite you to take an online poll to share with us. As your child is leading up to secondary school, what are your top considerations in selecting suitable schools? I sometimes wonder, for us as adults and parents, we have these considerations, right? What do our children really think? I always wonder whether do their considerations also match ours. Yeah, maybe later I'll invite our panelists to share more about this. But at this point, we'd like to share a video with parents, and this video you will hear from some of our children what's on their minds when they choose their secondary schools. It's a very short video of 3 minutes. Please sit back and enjoy it.
Yishun Town Secondary School,
Singapore Secondary School,
SGI.
Bukit Batok Secondary School.
Since I live in Yishun, my mom doesn't want me to spend most of my time on traveling.
I'm following my best friend choice, but also because my seniors in that school says that school is very good.
It's a school that was recommended to me by many people, and my brother had studied there and he had a great time.
It's nearer, so I can just walk there.
If I get a good aggregate for my PSLE score, I would actually like to go RGS or even Nanyang.
I might be going to Anderson, but I have a few other choices if my marks did not go as I planned.
I actually didn't choose the school, but then I recommend other people to have 2 to 3 more school backups. So if they didn't achieve their potential, maybe they could step down a bit and then join the other schools.
I had gone to their open house in April. I also heard about it from my brother, of course, and other teachers and parents who recommended the school to me.
My sisters, after their PSLE, they will actually get this kind of book about the schools, and I'll usually see the aggregate and also the school uniforms because I want to look pretty.
My friends' parents tell my parents, and then my parents tell me, then I just tell all those news to my friends so that they also study harder. Then so we can all go to the same school if we can.
I think most of we have siblings or very important thing called internet. So we will just search them up or ask our siblings for opinion. But then if we really don't like their recommendations, we'll just search online.
I speak to my sister. She's in JC now, so she's been through secondary school. She knows how it feels.
They have a variety of CCAs so that we can choose based on our interests.
CCAs, subjects given, what subjects can you take? There's different schools offer different combinations. Some schools excel in science, math, whereas some schools excel in language.
Every school, they just teach the same subjects and they have the same facilities such as toilets, canteens, and classrooms. So I think that all of the schools are about the same.
Results can get you to a good school, but then the most important thing is that you like the environment in the school and you enjoy going to school.
We hope you enjoyed that video, parents and audience online. Our children are so cute, isn't it? I mean, nothing beats like really hearing from them. And some are so cute to say, hey, actually, it's really the school uniform that they're looking out for, right? You know, when I was in school as a principal, right? Yeah, that's right. They want to look cool. You know what was one of the top considerations my students had in like which school to choose? It was actually canteen food.
That's also
Really,
important.
my daughter is important.
Right. And I thought, actually, that's so practical, right? So smart, right? I mean, why would I want to go to school every day if I don't have like nice food? And thankfully, my former school had really good canteen food, so I think everything worked out well. But I think it just shows that actually nothing beats like really hearing from our children themselves, about what matters to them. What about you as parents? Let's take a look at our poll results. It looks like a good spread across all the considerations. Most of you have said that you will consider your child's strength and interests, including like school culture, CCA, and programs, as well as homeschool distance. And some of you will consider the cutoff points. I think all these are very practical considerations. Sha'an and Minister, as recent PSLE parents, do you have any responses to this? Can you resonate with our parents' considerations as well?
Yeah, I think in having a conversation with my daughter, of course, we talked about her strengths, what she wanted to do, what she was interested in terms of, I think her top consideration was school culture. She wanted to be in a place that is nurturing and supportive. And of course, she wanted to be with her friends. I think that was definitely a top consideration. And I think if you're talking about the perspective between myself and my daughter, for me, the top consideration was homeschool distance, because I had seen my sister in her JC years having to travel 45 minutes one way and then another 45 minutes back, and every day she came home very exhausted. So I did tell my daughter, whichever school you choose, please make sure that it's nearby and that you can get there easily on your own and back, because we may not always be able to pick you up. And then the rest of it, I really left it up to her. I got her to do some research into the various schools that were, relatively nearby, had some programs that she was interested in. And then I asked her to kind of drop a little checklist of pros and cons. So let her make the decision. And then my role was really to just listen to her. If she chose this school, then what was interesting about it? If she chose the other school, then what was the consideration? Yeah, and then so I think like if we involve them in the conversation, then it feels more collaborative as opposed to I'm just deciding for her. Because I'm not going to go to the school. She's the one who has to go through the daily experience. And if she makes the choice and goes for it, she's more likely to like it, because she has already taken ownership of that choice. Yeah, but if you were to come from the other angle and say, you do this because I want you to, and then she's miserable, then it will come back to you. You see lah. And then I've got to hear like 4 years of it or 5 years of it, right? As opposed to if she made the decision by herself.
I really like the point that Sharon mentioned. I think it's really the same, because this is perhaps one of the first major decisions of their life, and we want them to own it. So it's okay, whatever considerations they have, it is their considerations, but we want them to know that when you make a choice, you do your research, you do your considerations, but ultimately you must own it and you must live with the choice that you have. So that is also part of the learning process. So you can say that I want to go to this school because my friends are going there. Fine, then that's fine, because then you look forward to going to school with your friends. You say you want to go to this school because of the school culture. Say fine. Then you make sure that you contribute to the school culture as well. So I think the considerations are the same. So I don't remember many conversations on, do you want to go to this school because this school has this cutoff point? I think from the children's perspective, it's like, what is this cutoff point? I don't know, right? All I know is that I want to go to an environment where I have friends, I enjoy my learning. That's it. And I think it's a quite sound thinking from our children. Yeah, very practical, right? So like you say, even if it's the food,
good choice, right?
Choice. It's a very important consideration. So I mean, I remember even during our time, it's like distance. Yes, you want to go to this particular school because you are now teenager, you need to travel that distance, and you must make sure you budget your time accordingly every day, because like Sharon said, you cannot expect people to send you to school for bearing the responsibility of that choice, right? So I thought very sensible answers and choices.
So, Sharon and Minister, sounds like you had a series of conversations with your child, and you actually maybe make the decisions together, or rather throw the ball in their court to ask them questions and then help them to sharpen the thinking and own the decision. How did you go about this process? Like, does it take a long time? How many of these conversations do you have? Some of our parents are asking, when do you get started, talking about these things? What if I try talking, but, they still can't see like a certain perspective? How much do I nudge or influence? Or when do I know, like, when to let go? Could you share with us, like, the very real journey that you had to take with your children?
The conversations maybe started in primary 5, maybe, because I think the school also started to see the idea. And so I guess maybe some of the initial questions are, what is your thinking behind where you want to go? What are some thoughts you have at the moment? And it's more of listening to them and hearing what they have to say. And of course, she did say, oh, I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of this. And so I would just probe a little bit more. What is it about this school that you like? What is it about that school that you like? And so she would just share. And of course, sometimes, like Lisa says, some of the responses may not be in 100% alignment with what you think, or perhaps they're making a decision like, for example, she really wanted to go to this school because she knows that the food is good, right? So as a parent, you might think, oh, but that's like, there are so many other ways to do that. And I think it's about refraining from judgment and really seeking to understand, like, if you really said that, then how important is that consideration for you? So I did ask her, but then what if you go to another school and the food is even better? I mean, it's just like having this thought process, right? And she was like, oh, but what if the food isn't better? Then I would have regretted this choice. So it's quite interesting to understand that, hey, this actually is important. And when you recognize that, then let's respect that she has made that decision. So it wasn't a once-off conversation, as you've mentioned, Sharon. It's like really over a period of time. But it wasn't also forced. It was kind of more like, during dinner conversations, she would be thinking, oh, my friends have been talking about this. What do you all think? She would also ask us back. Yeah, so I felt it was more like a two-way thing. Yeah, and I'm just grateful to be able to have that kind of relationship where we can talk openly about various choices that she's going to make. Yeah.
Well, I mean, looking back, I think what's useful is that it is not just a conversation that we start at P5 or 6. Not so much about just choosing school. The conversation is really about making choices in life. So even at a younger ages, I mean, we would try to encourage them to be conscious of the choices that they make, and then understand the consequences of the choices that they make. So for example, it could be at a very young age and they say that, oh, I want to go and join this CCA. You say, okay, you want to join this CCA, have you looked at the timetabling? Are you able to manage the time? And it could be a very small decision, not even about choosing school yet. Or they could say, I want to go out with my friends. I want to go to my friend's house to play. It's like, okay, so you're going to spend a couple of hours at your friend's house. And so do you have any other things that you need to do and complete? So it's about helping them to make decisions from the smallest decisions in their life to so-called the larger decisions. And PSLE won't be the largest decision they will ever make in their life, because there will be many more decisions in that journey. But it's how do we help to build them up along the way so that they become more confident, more considered in the way they make the decisions. So it's not an impulsive decision that they make, or it's not not well considered decision because they just look at certain perspective without remembering that there were other considerations of perspective. So I think that's very important, and it's part of their growing up journey. But one of the things that I am very glad perhaps it didn't happen in my children's choice was that they didn't say that I want to go to this school because people say that this is a good school and everybody wants to go to that school. And I was very happy for that because I recall my own family's experience. I mean, my sister, many years ago, she chose a school that perhaps is considered one of those very popular school, very high performing school. Then after she went through the school, then I reflected with her and I said that, did she really enjoy that? Uh, on hindsight, if she had to do this all over again, would she have done it? And then I realized that actually we will all agree that because of her personality, a high performing school in a high stress environment may not be most suitable for her and may not bring out the best in her. So like some people say that, oh, RI might be a popular school, RI might be a good school. Yes, but the real question is that will RI bring out the best in our child, even if our child get into RI, right? I have seen in my school visits many people in the secondary schools, they may not necessarily have gotten into the school that they thought they wanted because they really don't know the school. But having gone through the school, then I remember them telling me that they enjoy what they are doing, and the school has really given them the chance to exercise their other abilities, including their leadership abilities, and it has brought up the best in them. I remember this one very specific conversations talking to one child in Jurong, uh, in one of the schools in Jurong, and he said that no, I didn't apply for this school because I was thinking that if I can get into this other school because of this cut-off point. But having been in this school in 3 years, I realized if I had gone to that other school, I would never have the leadership opportunities that I have here. I will never have the friends that I have here who help me along in my journey. Because in that school, perhaps in a more high stress environment, he would be constantly struggling to keep pace. And he's not the type of people that enjoys that kind of environment. So I thought his conversation with me, his sharing with me, was also a useful reminder of how to help our children get into an environment that best bring out their gifts, rather than an environment where it is good for some other children. Because like what we mentioned just now, every child is unique and special.
Thanks very much. Actually, Minister, this reminds me of many of my students when I was a former principal, and in particular one student. She did very well for her PSLE, and her marks was so high that I think she could have gotten into any of the schools she wanted. She chose to come to my former school, which was very close to her home. So I guess the whole school distance part did matter to her. And also, she and her parents decided that maybe a less intense and stressful environment would be useful for her because she had some educational needs and she wanted to go at a particular pace. So indeed, I think in the 4 years that she spent in the school, the teachers took care of her. She had leadership opportunities. She did very well for her O levels, and then she continued on to the Institute of Higher Learning. And then she did so well, she could have got into any course. And she chose to go into a course in a polytechnic because she was so certain that she had a passion in a certain area. And so proud to say that she's doing so well today. In fact, I can safely say it because she was featured in the national newspapers, right, for her journey and for her growth. So it's really cases like this that keep us so encouraged that actually every child is different. And when every child and parent understands themselves well and finds like a suitable environment in school for the child can really blossom. And I think that has been the process and journey for both your children as well.
I suppose the environment has also changed from the time that we were children. I always say that life is now tougher for our children now. Once upon a time, we might get compared once a year when we visit people during Chinese New Year. Then some relatives will ask you, what's your PSLE score or what's your grades at which school you go to. But nowadays, because of the social media, people get to compare every day, every moment. And as parents, I think we have to be quite careful. This may not be healthy for our children. Many of our children will need time and space to grow at their own pace, rather than to be constantly compared with somebody else. And it's never a nice feeling to be constantly compared, because then we are no longer appreciating them for who they are. We are appreciating them, if any, in relation to who they might be or with somebody else.
It's like it's conditional.
It's conditional.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's the word. It's conditional. So we don't want our children to feel that our love and support for them is conditional. they are our children, even after their PSLE, even after their poly ITE, university, they are still our children. Even next time when they have their own children, they are still our children, right? But our love and concern for them, our care for them is not conditional, right? And I think that is empowering if we can send that positive message to our children throughout life, and not just whether they do well in one particular test or exam. But I've always encouraged my children that, you have never failed in life until you stop trying. Right? It's like one day my son came back and said he fell down riding a bike, and he was quite upset with himself, and he felt that he has failed to ride a bike properly. So I said, no, you have not failed. Tomorrow, after you patch up the wound, we'll go and ride again. And so long as you keep trying, you will learn to ride a bike one of these days. And now he's riding a bike well. So life is a journey. It's not about one single checkpoint that defines the entire journey. It's a series of challenges and opportunities to learn to overcome. And that's how we, I suppose, want to let our children know and that they have this confidence.
Thanks very much for sharing that wisdom, Minister. Some of our parents online are asking, our children are so young, they're only 12 years old, can they actually make sound decisions? But actually, if we go through a process with them, right, and talk them through that, it's really not about just decision about PSLE or secondary school. You're trying to make decisions and choices about life. I think it's never too young to start this process with them and to do it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even at a very young age, do you want another ice cream? That is a choice, right? That's a decision-making process. Why do you want another ice cream? What's the consequences of having another ice cream? So I think we just need to have some confidence to build up their confidence and journey the process with them.
I think it comes from a deep-rooted belief that we believe that they can do it. I think if we believe they can do it, and we give them the opportunities to practice it, and if they do make mistakes, just as Minister was saying, mistakes are part and parcel of learning. I think as a parent, we make mistakes every day. It's one of the most humbling journeys. And if along the way we make a mistake and we beat ourselves up about it, then we're going to stay where we are. And that's probably even more painful than making a mistake and picking yourself up and learning from it. And so if we create those opportunities, and like if the parents are asking, can they really make sound decisions? If they make a mistake, are we going to berate them for making a mistake? Then they're going to start to feel that I can't make this decision. That is the message we end up sending, right? But if they make a mistake, we say, okay, let's look at this. Okay, what did you learn from this? Or when you made that decision, what were your considerations? And then maybe some part of the thought process may not have been especially sound, maybe at 8 or 10, and that's okay because they're also developing it. But we can offer the guidance and support and say, maybe next time we can try a few options. Well, let's try it out. So I think we go in with like a kind of take it as an experiment. We try, we get feedback, we tweak, and then we adjust. And similar for our parenting journey, right? When we make a mistake, we see a face appear on the child, like, oh dear, we said the wrong thing, And then it's not like, you see lah, it's so lousy. It's more like, oh, okay, next time let me try something else.
Right? That is a point of view on what Sharon said. I think making a mistake is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Not daring to make a mistake, in not daring to make any decision, might be the end of the world because then they grow up with a lack of confidence, and that is not what we want. So I think if we think that the PSLE is a big decision that we want to minimize the chances of them not being considered in their view, then I think the journey starts much earlier. We should help them to be confident to make small decisions, progressively making bigger decisions, and I think that's how they gain the confidence. So it's not just about the decision, whether the decision is right or wrong. It's whether they go through the process to have the confidence to make that decision for themselves and own the decision thereafter.
So it's about good decision making, I guess, with guidance. And several of our parents have given us some feedback and questions. How do we guide our students, guide our children to select the suitable schools for them? And I think some of our parents are very concerned. What if our children do not get into any of the schools of their choice? How are they going to deal with the outcome and the disappointment? Shan, would you like to share perhaps like your journey with your daughter?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if they don't get the choice that they want, then we will change the question. It is more of how do we make the best of the choice that has already been made for us, right? And I think the question is also, are all schools good schools? I work with many schools in my professional life, and I've realized that every school has something good about them. There's a good quality, a good program. The teachers are nurturing and supportive. So again, it comes back to the definition of what does good mean, right? Is it good because everybody regards it as good? That's just one perspective. Or is it good because it's good my child is able to feel comfortable there, my child is able to make friends there. So I think if we broaden the definition of what a good school is, then you will see that if this school is where my child can flourish, then it is the best school for my child. But if you go to another school where they can't seem to adapt to the culture, and I had friends who chose really good schools last time, but they end up wilting in there because they just succumbed to the pressure, and they ended up looking back at their choice thinking, what if, right? So yeah, it's I think it's important to put that into perspective. Sometimes we are so in it, right? And I can totally relate to parents thinking that this is the choice I need to make. Everybody's making the same choice.
So I agree with Shan. When people say that this is a good school, what do we mean by this is a good school? Is it on a certain matrix? But the real question is this a good school for my child? Given my child's abilities, given my child's interests. So it's not whether this is a generically a good school because somebody else have some other matrix, but really specifically, is this a good school? Is this the best environment for my child to bring up the best in him or her? I think it's perhaps useful for us to remind ourselves that. And it's not just about a school choice. In fact, this is actually a philosophy in life. Sometimes, in a hyper-connected society like Singapore, where we constantly know what everybody else is doing, we keep asking ourselves, what is good and what are the things that other people are pursuing? Then we are forever trying to live up to somebody else's yardstick, rather than to appreciate our own strengths and weaknesses and our children's strengths and weaknesses. And I think in life, sometimes it's also quite stressful, sometimes quite perhaps demoralizing if we have to constantly live up to somebody else's standard of what is defined as good. But what they define as good may have nothing to do with what we should be pursuing or how we can best help our children to grow. And I have also experienced experiences like what Shahan mentioned. I've seen some of my friends go to so-called this popular school, this good school, but they don't thrive because their character is not one whereby if I'm at the bottom of the class, I want to prove you wrong and I'm going to work very hard and beat you all. No, they are just the type who say that I want an environment whereby we can all learn together. And I don't know why all these people are so high performing and I don't feel confident. And I have seen people after 1 or 2 years in those schools just losing their interest in their own studies, losing their confidence in themselves. And I think that is the saddest thing when a child loses the sparkle in the eyes, loses the interest, and loses the confidence. Then we ask ourselves as parents, what have we done? Sending them to this so-called popular school that have destroyed their desire to learn. So I think we have to be quite careful with that.
Right. Thank you very much. I think Minister and Sharon's sharing have also addressed some of the life questions that our parents have. Like, for example, Alice shared, like, is every school really a good school? And I think Sharon and Minister have shared that, well, it's really about, is this a good school for my child, based on my child's strengths, interests, and needs? So parents, we hope that has been useful for you. And I think this leads us very nicely into our final segment of sharing for this morning. Many parents are asking, now, after my child gets into secondary school and is in the teenage years, how do I support my child to adapt well to secondary school life, right? And I think Min and Sharon have shared a little bit about it, but we will get to hear some of their final experiences. But we do want to understand more about your concerns and know more about you parents. So at this point, I would like to invite you to take an online poll to share with us what will your concern or your child's concern be about secondary schools and how to adapt to it. Would it be about longer school hours, or managing more subjects or CCAs, making new friends, or others? If you could share that with us, that would be very useful. And we do know that moving on to secondary school is certainly very exciting, both for your child as well as you as a parent. So at this point, we invite you to sit back, relax, to watch our final video about what it's like to move into secondary school. It's a short video, just 3 minutes. So please enjoy.
The CCAs, the new soundings, doing most of the stuff by ourselves.
Definitely, I would like to see the CCAs over there and the new things that we are going to learn, as I like learning new things.
Although they take up extra time after school, they are fun to participate in, as I can meet new teachers there and make new friends.
I don't want to see the same soundings again, it's like very boring.
Usually in primary school, we have to walk in 2 straight rows, then if we want to go somewhere, we must tell our mother everything.
I think it won't be too different. It's just a whole new subjects, new friends, and a very different atmosphere. That's all. I don't think it will be much different from primary school.
I'll feel different over there.
We need time to adapt into the new environment.
I'm scared for making new friends.
That's my first year over there, and like I feel like a primary one student, and I feel scared of being bullied. So I'll be happy if some of my friends come there.
Like the new friends, the teacher, and there's a lot of things like, oh, where's the PE room, where's the art room, and all different places in the school we need to know.
My social skills are not so good.
It's not just that not making friends, it's making bad friends. They don't always show it first, so that worries me a bit.
I'm a little bit excited and a little bit nervous because I know there will be my other friends from other schools. So I'm nervous to make friends with them.
I heard from my older siblings, like they have 11 or 9 subjects. I was very scared because many students cannot handle 4 to 5 subjects now. So we are worried.
It will definitely be hectic, as the homework load is definitely a lot more, and also the CCA is really tiring. My sister joined brass band and she has no time for her homework, so that's what I'm worried about.
Thank you.
Oh, that was quick.
Internet is wonderful, right? You have all these things that you can breathe now.
Yeah.
Oh my god, check.
Go back and encourage your friends now.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. We are processing the poll results, and we'll be able to show it to you in a minute or two. And in the meantime, we are now talking about how to support our children as they transit to secondary school and adapt to secondary school life. Who better to share, right, the most recent experience with us than Minister and Sha'an, who are just recent PSLE parents and their children are already in secondary school. So, Min and Sha'an, what's life like for your child? And very importantly, what's life like for you now that your child's in secondary school and you're a full-fledged teenager?
I think it's more, she definitely spends more hours in school. And for me, I guess I see her less, so I kind of miss her. But at the same time, I know that this is part of the gradual procession, especially since her school has both primary and secondary school on one campus. She has to stay till about 5:30, 6:30 sometimes. Yeah, and so I think it's more like really trying to capitalize on the time that we spend together. So morning time, getting ready for school, capitalize on like the 5 minutes, and then the times that I do fetch her, we try to, spend the time in the car chatting about what life is like. So as compared to primary, where she'll come home about maybe 2, and then we have a lot of time in the afternoon to talk to each other. So I think that to me has been the biggest change. The longer hours also means that she does get tired. So when she comes back, immediately she has to change out and then we have dinner, and before long, they're off to bed. So yeah, I think it's just adapting as they grow. I think we also have to adapt and get used to the changes that they're going through. Yeah. It is a big change. Yeah.
Well, when my children started secondary school, I think the most obvious change is that they have more subjects. They spend more time in school. And this is where I start seeing them on a new phase of time, whereby they are trying to manage their own time. And I always encourage them that you'll probably have more things that you want to do than you have time to do, right? And it's not just about in secondary schools. I think even as adults, most of us will probably feel that we have more things that we want to do than we have time to do. Then, in that process, they are learning how to prioritize, they're learning how to manage their time, and how to keep to the discipline. So I thought these are very important skill sets. No? Learning to prioritize, learning to manage your time, and learning to be disciplined in what you do. And I recently just had a conversation with my son and say that, well, I know you are feeling a bit more stressed compared to, say, primary school, where perhaps your schedule is, your timetable is all worked out for you and you just follow. But now you really have to start making more choices. You really need to be much more disciplined in managing your work. And this is a skill set that I want you to acquire as you grow up, because there will be many more decisions and many more demands on your time in time to come.
Let's see if our parents and the poll results also share the same concerns. Our poll results show that while most of our parents are concerned about managing more subjects, right, as well as CCAs, I think it's a very real issue that Sharon and Minister have brought up. They are also concerned about making new friends in a new environment. That's very true, as well as longer school hours and some other issues like managing the learning devices or gaming. Um, how is your daughter coping with more subjects right now?
I think she was quite excited actually about starting secondary school because of new subjects, especially things like geography, which is quite work around nature. Now she's able to identify things. So yeah, I think it's a transition. Every transition means that there are changes, and I think it's about addressing it step by step. There's something that you're unfamiliar with, she will ask me, or if I don't know, then we'll try to ask people who have been through that experience before. How is it like coping? But so far, I think she has been taking it day by day, trying to still stay positive as she learns new things. I think one of the biggest changes is also the teachers talk to them more like adults as compared to primary school. So I think that's also something like, even the guidance that teachers give us is not like last time. Then I said, yeah, it's not because they don't care about you. It's because they want you to learn to be disciplined and be independent on your own. So if there's anything that you don't know, again, it's your initiative to go and ask and find out. Yeah, so I think there are new skills that she has had to learn. At first, it's a little bit uncomfortable. She's not used to it. But I think encouraging and saying, like, okay, let's just try it out. And if really they are anxious about everything, then I think it's just being present for them, listening to them. And if you really need to, I pretend to be a teacher, you ask me first lah. Then you kind of like, you do a little bit of like, scaffolding so that by the time you get to school, you're just another adult. They can ask.
Well, I think for me, the most obvious change is that he's doing many more projects with his friends. And also partly because of COVID, they are learning how to collaborate in a hybrid manner. Discussions in school, discussions over Zoom sessions, working on a Google Doc together. So I thought these are all very relevant skills. So I always encourage him that, these skills that you are picking up now, even daddy has to apply some of these skills at my workplace, even at this age and time, right? Learning how to work with peers, partners, learning how to do a project together, to manage the time, right? Learning how to appreciate different perspectives from different people. These are all very important skill sets. So, and I think he's enjoying it. Of course, when he first started, it was a bit tentative because you don't know your friends, you don't know what people are thinking about, you may not be so smooth. But as I see him go through a few projects, I think all of them become more and more comfortable with one another, and more and more of them are able to do it in a much more effective and timely way compared to when they first started. And I thought that's part of learning.
Right. Do your children get stressed at any point? Because there's so much newness, right? I mean, even doing projects is like a new thing. Even getting to know how to interact with new friends. That's just all very new. And how do they manage the stress?
Well, if my child is stressed, the first thing that we'll do is that I'll give him a hug.
Oh, that's really nice.
Because I always try to remind myself that sometimes as parents we are very eager to try and solve their problem. But maybe they don't need us to solve their problem. They just need to know that we are there for them. And why would I want to solve his problem and deprive him of a learning opportunity? Right? So like, for example, the other day he was quite stressed. Yeah, I don't want to do this video editing and I don't have a video editing software. And I said, well, I also don't know how to do this. And I also don't have a video editing software. I said, why don't you ask your friends and see where we can perhaps download a free software, and perhaps you can ask your friend and learn from your friends. So that's one way. And he went to the internet, he searched, he discussed with his friends, and they found something. Alternatively, we could be the type of parent that say, oh, don't worry, you need a software tomorrow, I'll buy you one. Or I'm going to get somebody to show you how. Then perhaps we have just deprived them of that opportunity to learn and discover for themselves. Yeah. So I'm always a bit conscious of that. And I know that I won't be able to do everything that they want to do, and it's okay. It's okay. And perhaps in that process, they also have this confidence that I don't have a superman father or superwoman mother that knows everything, and why am I the only one in the world that don't seem to know everything? No, actually all of us know something, and all of us don't know many things, and we are just trying to piece the different abilities together to get the thing done.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, definitely she does get stressed, but not all stress is bad. I think stress where you are learning something new is inevitable, right? But of course, there are times when maybe she's just stressed over one small thing, and sometimes they lose perspective. I think in psychology we call this catastrophizing. Like you always just think to the worst case scenario, and when you get there, maybe you start to have a bit of anxiety. I know that a lot of teenagers struggle with anxiety, and so sometimes as a parent, I literally just hold on to her and say like, take a deep breath. It feels like it's the end of the world, but it's not. For recently there was a project that they were working on, and one of the friends was not well and not contactable as well. And so it was the deadline. They were trying to meet the deadline. So of course she was pacing up and down. I was like, she's not picking up the phone. Then how? So I said, well, what have you already done? So she mentioned I did this, I did this, I did this. I said, you have done whatever you can. Maybe it's not on you anymore. And maybe it's just about your friend finally picking up the phone, or your teacher responding and letting you know that the deadline can be shifted or whatever it is. Yeah, so I think if they lose perspective, our role is to remind them that you are just like this, but hey, let's move back a little bit. Let's take a breather and calm down, and maybe encourage them to do something that helps them to relax. Maybe it's listening to music. In her case, she likes to crochet. Sometimes she will learn Korean. I think when we give them something as an alternative to do, and that they can self-soothe, then they will be able to take care of it by themselves in the future.
That's really useful and really reassuring to hear that. We have a few parents who have been asking us about the use of devices and gadgets, and I think parents, it's a real issue. They're very concerned about it, right? How do we help our children to manage their use of the handphones, gadgets, or devices, especially as they will need to use more of it as they go into secondary school? Any sharing of this?
Well, I started young with my kids, which is to trust them to use the devices with discipline. So it could be much younger and said, okay, you want to play the game, fine. Your time limit is perhaps 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes on a weekend, but you manage it. Right? It's with the sense of trust that let's agree on this. We have considered that what we said just now, we considered various perspectives of this, and we decided together that this is the amount of time that you should spend on this device for this purpose, then you keep to it. So it's about learning to empower them as they go along, rather than do a sudden change and say that now that you have this device, you can do this or you can't do this. Because if we take that approach, then they might develop a very unhealthy mindset that, okay, now how do I beat the system? How do I go around your rules, right? And that becomes very negative relationship. But I think it's about building that relationship of trust and empowering them from young, that they take ownership of the issue themselves. And sometimes they will miss the target, and sometimes they will play too long. Then it is for them to understand that, well, now that you have played your games on the devices for too long, and now you have to live with the consequences, right? And then that's also part of their growing up.
I think one thing we can avoid is like don't use it as a threat, and also don't use it as a reward. I find like I give quite a number of parenting talks, and I do have parents sharing with their children that if you get this kind of grade for exam, we're going to give you a device, or that if you finish this, then you can have this amount of time on the device. And I think that when it's conditional like that, then the child learns that it is something that I get because I'm a good person. Yeah, and then you become a very unhealthy association with it. And also if you use conditions like if you do this, then you do this. Yeah, then again it becomes like a bargaining thing. Devices are part and parcel of our life. And as adults, we need to use it. It's like our one-stop shop, our computer. So to tell them also unrealistically that you cannot use the device at all, it's also like they're watching us. If you're using your device, why can't we? And I think sometimes they feel that it's very unfair. Yeah, but I think we need to take time to explain why this amount of time. Why we're not giving you free reign of the phone. Maybe it's because of your eyesight, maybe it's because of access to certain content that you don't want them to. And I think we trust in the children that if we explain it to them over time, that they will begin to understand it as well. And just like what Minister was saying, it's something that is from young. Yeah, so explain to them from young, this is what the device is for, right? And then as they start to use it, and if they do make a mistake, then explain to them or talk to them about talking through what could you do next time to prevent yourself from overusing it. Maybe set a timer, maybe use it in a space where everybody can see you, and also that they become a little bit more mindful.
My final thought for today is this thing about ownership. And I always remember this quote. Maybe it was MM's quote or something. It says that, when you are around and things get done, he wasn't very impressed. When you are no longer around and things still get done, then he will be mightily impressed, right? So if you extend that to our children, if we are around and they do what they do, that's one thing. If we are not around meaning physically not around with them, or maybe one day they grow up and we are no longer around with them, but they still do what they do because they own it, then I think we have been successful. So I think it's not so much as what they do now, but what they do in their life when they own their own decisions rather than obey our rules.
So it really takes a lot to be a parent, right?
Maybe just one word to encourage our parents that we are all learner parents.
It's a journey.
It's a journey for us as well. So don't think that the clock struck 12 and tomorrow suddenly we became this perfect parent. And I dare say that we will never be the perfect parent. We too are also constantly learning in this journey of parenthood together with our children.
Yes. Any final words of encouragement from you two, Shan?
I think it's focus on the relationship. I think sometimes we get carried away with, I want my child to be successful, I want them to do well, I want them to show up in certain ways, that we forget that the fundamental of everything, they are our children, and it's a relationship we are building with them. So even if they've made a mistake, I always go by this principle by this researcher called Jane Nelson, connection before correction. We are upset that they have done something that we don't want them to do, but if we just go in and correct, they are going to feel judged immediately and defensive, and you will not get anything done. But when they make a mistake and we go in with connection, we say, hey, this must be difficult for you as well, and tell me what's going on. Then we have that relationship, and when there's a relationship, there's trust. When there's trust, then they will be more willing to share things with you. Right? Some parents may feel, why my son and daughter now secondary never tell me anything. And yes, some part of it is because they're changing, but some part of it comes back to that relationship. Yeah, so I tell myself, and I always tell parents at parenting talk, if after secondary school, your child is still having a good relationship and still willing to talk to you, it's a good thing. That's what we want to focus on.
Yeah, and I think that's what all parents want. Just want to have like a good relationship with the child. We want to show our children that we love them unconditionally. We respect them for who they are, and it's really in our daily words and actions. So this morning, I want to thank you so much, Minister Chan and Sharon, for taking your time to share your thoughts and your experiences with all of us and our parents online. And I would also like to thank our parents for posing your questions and also your comments for our session. We hope that this has been useful. And I'd like to invite you to do a final poll just to share with us if you found today's session useful, and also later a survey on how we can maybe perhaps improve our future sessions to support you better. So in the interest of time, we have come to the end of our session. This was MOE's Facebook Live session on how to support our children for secondary school. And in the process, we've talked a lot about PSLE, about secondary school life, how to choose suitable schools, but most of all, what does it mean to be a parent, right? And we want to tell you parents, you're doing a great job out there. It's not easy, we know that, yeah, but keep it up, and it's okay to just be an okay parent. You know, I recently heard, we don't need to be a perfect parent, but I think it's just healthy enough to be a good enough parent. And I think that's what we want to leave with you today. So enjoy the journey of parenting, enjoy your process with your children. And with that, we wish you a very good Saturday and weekend ahead, and all the best for all that you want to do with your children together, right? So signing off from all of us, Minister Chan, Ms. Yeo Sha-en, and myself, Sharon, take care and all the best. Bye.
Bye.